everybody, and thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to spend these next minutes or this next hour with my friend Lisa Cairns. Every time I get a chance to join, I just feel so much joy in my heart.
It seems to come out differently sometimes, but always has the same feeling, or the same flow. But what it feels like when it's being expressed isn't so much about the words or what's said or how I say it, but it just comes from such innocence or creativity. Like it doesn't feel like it's coming from middleman. It's like, when you're a creative person, so when you're creating and whole world's forgotten and it's just total creativity. So when I speak, it just feels like that. It does seem to come out in a particular flavour and a particular style, but it does change a little bit, it seems to, but it always has the flavour. And I think that when I'm speaking, it's nothing really to do with me, but that's what people are resonating with, not so much with the words. It's like a remembering of this innocence that's always there. And it's not really coming from anybody in here or anything here. It just comes out. I think that's why the message is appreciated. Because really the concepts are very narrow. You could learn them quite quickly. Not exactly.
And in some ways, it takes away the accomplishment. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's almost so easy and simple that it takes away any sense of accomplishment. Like, no, you got to give me something more to get take my feet into.
But also from here, because there's nothing which feels like mine. So sometimes me and Paul write this screenplay together that we've been writing. And we're rereading it together, and I'll be like, that's great. And then he'll be like, you wrote that. And I'll be like, oh, did I? I don't even have any sense of it. So it's like on both sides, there's absolutely nothing here. There is no difference, anything that comes out here to that which listens to it there. It's all the same energy vibrating in its different formations. It makes no difference. There's nothing to claim or be proud of or be ashamed of, because nobody is ever doing anything. It's just life is giving the appearance that somebody's done something. But really, that is the same as the way I can see a chair behind you. The chair appears, the light appears. It's really spectacular. It's total innocence, but there's nothing to complain. You're just a puppet, just doing its little dance, and out it comes like tuk 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 tuk.
So you shared a little bit about this screenplay, this movie. Can you share a little bit more about the title, what it is?
It's called Who is Alice? And it's really Paul's creation. But originally my career was in playwriting, so writing for the theatre. And so I was just helping him along the way. But me and Paul are so different. Paul is all about comedy and the surface and sitcoms and laughter. And when I write, I'm dark. I like to go into like so much detail, and I like comedy, but I like dark comedy. Whereas Paul is more like somebody trips over, and like a more of a surface comedy, where I really am a dark writer. But anyway, something interesting happened from writing that. Was for 10 years since my first awakening, I'd stopped writing, and since he started writing, got me writing, since then I've produced 2.5 films written.
Wow.
So since I last saw you, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And
I know. I've not produced them as they've been made, but I've written them. I've written one film, and I'm just now, it's turned into a whole TV series, so I'm now on like the third I've written a whole 2-hour film, and then I'm on the TV series after that. It's like, it's just so about, and it's all about awakening.
That's awesome.
It's amazing because it's been 10 years, but the art still seems to be there. But in those last 10 years, it seemed to stop and not be used at all. Although I enjoyed theatre and I still enjoyed watching TV, it just seemed to stop, and then suddenly, whoop, 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 whoop.
And as you wrote, or as you were writing, does it come out in a very similar way as everything else comes out and unfolds?
Yeah, it feels it actually, when realized that that the way of speaking about this in the same way, it's the same. It's the same, but the plays are very much. I don't anymore have any drive to communicate non-duality, although I do all these talks. But in the writing, I don't have any idea about communicating non-duality, but it comes out because of this machine. So the non-duality comes out, but it's very much based on the drama of the characters, not non-duality. And it just so happens that the characters are having awakenings, but I'm not explaining non-duality or what's happening. So it's sort of accessible to. It's funny because my normal speaking is not accessible, but these films seem to be more accessible to everyone.
It's funny. I'm just thinking here for a moment. Just in order to do that, one must incorporate a story.
Yeah.
So it's like the use of the story to point back to the non-existence of the story.
Yeah. And I'm so gruesome in the story. So you get different writers, and I don't know how much you know about writing, but I prefer more TV writing, which means you have more drama and more arcs. You're an actor, so you know it. So you're meant to have like an arc, like a drama every before the interval, so every 15 minutes. So whereas films tend to be more of a build-up and slower, although more's going towards TV now, so I'm more of that kind of writer. I'm like, da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm really the drama queen now. It's unbelievable. There's nothing happening, there's nobody there, and here I am writing out all these things.
The irony of it all. This is beautiful. And so, I'm sure you don't know what's to unfold, but is there any sense that these will actually, anybody else will be able to enjoy the art that you've created?
I don't know, actually. I do have some friends in TV. I've lost all my contact from when I was writing, and one of them seems quite interested, so maybe there might be something produced.
Well, definitely Paul's movie's coming out soon, I would imagine. I've seen on social media. When does that come out?
That comes out next December.
Beautiful.
Still not been made. Still, yeah. So, but me and Paul are so different. I mean, we have totally different styles of what we like and what we write. But so I don't think he would be interested in making something I did. He's just not that kind of person. If you wanted to make a joke of it, and I'm like, boom, boom, more like True Detectives or something.
That's so funny. I can sort of relate, because I think Mike and I are completely different as well. He has no interest in much of what I do. and it's just so beautiful. It's like, because in so many ways, it's like those things have had to be broken. In other words, in the past, it seemed like in relationships there was such a dependency and a need for my partner to be so involved and engaged and interested in me and what I did. And this was like a total crush. It was like, what? What do you mean? I'm going to talk somewhere. You don't want to hear me? It's like, but no, Mike. No interest whatsoever. Which is, I just have to laugh and just think about how beautiful it is, and in hindsight, also look at, also the suffering that I've seemingly experienced when there is a dependency in the relationship to want or need that validation of taking interest in what I do.
Yeah. It's such I don't understand how a lot of relationships make it, because it's so difficult when you need someone to give something to you. That's such a difficult drama to be in. And I think it comes and goes and it gets more and less intense. Like each person gets more, but that's a really, to expect happiness from another person, or from anything really, but particularly from another person, because it can reply to you and tell you where to go away. But to expect it from that person puts such stress on relationships, incredible amount of stress. I wonder how societies stay married as much as they do. I know it's still high divorce rate, but I think it's like 50% in England actually stay together. I'm like, how?
And that
I think
doesn't.
that the single must be outweigh the arguments, because they're not making each other happy. I'm so negative about humanity.
No, and it also doesn't mean that the remaining 50% are happy.
No, no,
You know, so.
no. When the seeker's there, it's always unhappy, because it's always expecting to get it out of the next thing. And that it's constantly disappointed. It's always expecting that it will get, that happiness is just around the corner, and that happiness is a physical sensation in my body of pleasure, and that I can maintain permanent pleasure. That's such a hard thing such a stress to put on the body. Like dogs are so lucky. Like Khaleesi has no sense of pleasure being happiness, therefore she never tries to hold on to pleasure. So when there's pain, there's pain. When there's pleasure, but there's no sense that it's hers or that pleasure is a better thing. Where we believe that pleasure, excitement, joy is it, and that we've got to hold on to those sensations, and chemicals change like everything. And it's always setting up this loop, and this loop gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as time goes on. More and more things are needed, because you can't maintain pleasure ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's the tragedy, and it's so difficult when that's set up in a relationship. And in the beginning, in the relationship, you get lots of love chemicals that go in the body, so you get loads of pleasure in the initial beginning, because the body's responding with these in love chemicals. And then it gets less and less, and you're always trying to recreate that. What a terrible drama. And you're always secretly thinking that I've done something wrong, or they've done something wrong, and that's why I'm not happy. Like there's a secret, like trying to hide it from them, or trying to blaming them subtly, like trying to cover up and trying to make out to everybody else that you're happy. And you're secretly feeling that you've failed in a relationship, or there's something wrong with you because you can't have this constant pleasure relationship. And I think that a lot of society must be going around with that feeling inside of them, that they in some way have failed their partner, and what tension it must create. So much.
This is the thought that comes to mind, is when you talk about just like dying to the moment, just dying to everything, and that's how it kind of feels like even in the experience of being in a relationship, is just with everything, just dying to it all, just.
It really is. It's absolute end of judgment of anything that these bodies are. It's like it just comes out, and it's for no one. It's just coming out and empty. And that doesn't mean that the body's like, I'm not the perfect person to be in a relationship with. The difference might be that it's nothing's held on to. It just gets expressed, and that's it. But it's still, I want a yellow sofa, and Paul wants a blue sofa. I want this house, and he wants that. That's still the way it goes.
And it's so funny. It's so funny, because I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember once. This is before Mike and I moved out here where we are now. I had this fascination with black and white tiles on the floor, and so he's just
that's nice.
Yeah, thank you. Apparently, Mike didn't think so. so he's like, no, I'm not no, it's not gonna happen. I'm like, what do you mean it's not gonna? And then all of a sudden, this whole like anger ensues over like the black and white tiles versus not, and this sense of like, you know, betrayal and, you know, in the absence of flexibility. I mean, it was just crazy. And now, you know, fast forward a few years or whatever, I'm thinking like what was even the point of like all that, in the sense that it was like all this emotion with ideas. There was nothing really real about it. Like here we are, that there's no place for black and white tiles right now where we live. But it's like, and I mean, it was all hypothetical conversation. We hadn't even moved or anything, and so all that to just say how these, like, it's all just like the whole disagreement and the whole sense of frustration and pain or whatever is all in this hypothetical world.
Yeah. But I think two things happen. I think that as creative bodies, so these are creative, there's always going to be disagreement. One body's going to like yellow and one body's going to like blue. One body's going to like their eggs runny and the other one hard. There's always going to be different preferences. It's all dependent whether somebody holds on to that as to where the suffering begins. So there can still be opinions, and there could still be what wants for a beige sofa over a black sofa. But if the person holds on to it, that's when it begins to go into crazy land, because it's suddenly about you and you're imagining yourself with those tiles. And rather than it's just an expression coming out, it's relating back to somebody in time, and it's you. It's all about building the you and making you happy with something. And then that's where the boom, boom suffering comes. But I think that naturally relationships are always going to be a little bit of fire, because each one of them has a certain specific setup. And you'll have one that'll be more passive and one that'll be more dominant, and those will change as time goes on.
It's so beautifully said, and it's so funny because as I was sharing with the whole black and white tile, I mean, I'm thinking, okay, in my presence, or like right now, or what have. The other day, I was just like, oh, I'd love to put, you know, a pond, you know, in this area of the property, and Mike was like, no, we can't put a pond there because the water this and the water that, and I can feel there's almost like there's almost like this attraction to the kind of like, what do you mean there's not going to be a pond, or why can't I, you know, there's like something that just wants to come out, and but I don't know. It's just like, because it's seen it. You know, I can laugh at it, and then even in the moment, it's like looking at it, like, oh, okay. But there is like this attraction to want to hold on to this idea. This idea for me, I want the pond. Like that's so. Anyways, from what you just said, it just kind of made so much sense that the person they're suffering when there's that wanting to hold on to the person and what the person wants.
There's always going to be those initial reactions. Craig's always going to have his particular creativity, like that particular way of being and looking at things and seeing things. And Mike, I'm sure, will always stay to his particular ways of seeing things. Like me and Paul, we had these explosions about my way or his way, and normally I win. I'm the winner.
I'm usually the loser. No, which one's better, Lisa?
Yeah, that's how it disappears. Yeah, more like, yeah, it's all emptiness. I'm like, it disappears, Lisa, because you get your way. Oh, take my jump off. I'm laughing so much. It makes me hot.
It's like, can I be okay with being the one who doesn't win? And it's funny because that is part of the suffering too. It's like, because even as I held the thought of myself as the one who doesn't win, it's like, oh, am I really that? And then that can become the basis of another argument. Like, I just gotta die. Freedom lies in the death. It's just gotta die. It's just gotta die.
Oh, dear. You're hurting my tummy.
And it's funny, and okay, so this whole thing about dying and stuff like that, it's like, based on what you shared in your teachings, I mean, there's no choice in any of this. So is it correct to say, or is it more aligned to truth to say that I'm not even choosing to die in the moment or whatever?
No. And really, the truth is that you never lived. So that's like, you never ever have lived. This is so vastly empty, and that nodding, that everything is not coming from something in time, it's coming from nothing, emptiness, vastness. So you're setting me off again now. It just makes me laugh so much when I think of you losing to Mike. I've still got a bit of a giggle coming up. Mike.
It's so funny. It's so entertaining to watch the whole dynamic of the whole thing in the mind unfold. It is such a joke, and there's such an appreciation to witnesses. It hasn't always felt that way though.
Yeah.
It hasn't always felt that way. But
it is like, everything is such a celebration, even the arguments. I know that's exactly opposite to what the mind thinks and what the person thinks, because it receives pain from arguments, so it thinks pain is unhappiness. But even the arguments are so free. Everything is a celebration. Everything, even the act of war. I know I'm going to be shot for saying that, but everything is a celebration of life. It's so beautiful. But it's just terrifying when you see it through the lens of being someone separate, because there's somebody at war, then there's somebody that dies, and then it becomes horrific and traumatic. But when it's seen that nobody lives and nobody dies, all of it is a celebration of this energy, of this mystery.
Yeah, I remember hearing you once say something about, because it's like to segregate war as something bad is really not to appreciate a part of life, or not to see it as life. And you had talked about how the destruction, you need the destruction for the rebirth in this physical world. Like, things have to die for things to be birthed. So it's like, to see it as the one movement, it is celebratory.
When that emptiness is revealed, it's like, even in acts of war, even in fighting, and I'm not for it. I'm not saying for it. That's not what's being said. But when the emptiness is really seen, then the innocence of that act is really seen. Like, it's innocence, it's total and utter innocence. Just like the tree takes from the soil, or the the bird eats the insect. It's totally innocent. There's no one that does it. Because we associate so much pain with war, which it is painful, and we think pain is the enemy, because pain is what we associate with death, and we think death is the enemy. When that drops, then it's all seen as this beautiful expression, all of it, and all of it, it's always been accepted, but all of it is accepted by life, and it has to be that way. You can't just be celebrating the good things and the growth, and it's all of it is an absolute celebration, including the dark and the evil, or what we would call evil. But it's like it's all seen as the same. It doesn't mean that the person doesn't fight, and we don't try and stop wars, and we don't, all those sort of things are welcome too, but it's an absolute acceptance of energy expressing itself however it expresses itself. In the back, oh my god, I can't even say it, I'm meant to be a non-dual teacher. In the back of Vita, suddenly lose my way. There's this really beautiful story where, I've forgotten all their names, where there was a war, and one of the soldiers was saying to God, I don't want to fight, I don't want to do this. And God said, peace is knowing you aren't doing this, I am doing this. Like, so he didn't want to go and fight, he didn't want to go and kill his brother, and he was saying, I don't want to kill my brother. And it's really seeing that there's nobody acting, the emptiness and the innocence of it all. And nothingness, emptiness, isn't like a human brain. It's not looking in the world of good and bad and right and wrong. So it's not creating evil and good. That's in the human world. To innocence, it's just creating. Just like the painter throws the paint, say if it's like a modern expressionist and throwing the paint, and the paint collides, and the yellow and the blue collide, and then they make pink, I think, if they collide. You're like, the blue could be saying, I've died, you're taking my colour away, or the other one. But it's like emptiness is expressing like that. It's not looking at it like two things are dying. Like, it's not looking like when the people fight against each other that one human dies or another human dies. Emptiness doesn't have those abilities. It creates thinking and opposites in the human brain, but it is totally innocently expressing. It's not thinking, oh, I'm killing one or destroying another. It expresses for the joy of expressing, and that's the source of everything. When that's really seen, then it's no one that dies. There was no one that was alive, and yet that essence is always there. There's nobody that left home. There's nobody that got kicked out of Eden. Eden always is in everything, and that freedom is there come pleasure or pain, or whatever the body goes through, the fighting with the partner or the joy with the partner.
It's interesting that we talked about war, considering there was recently the events that took place in Paris. And one of the things that you said when you just shared in the beginning was, this is not to say that you're for war or that you're advocating war or anything like that. And I hear you say that, and it's funny because the mind, it's like we have to say that in the sense that the mind doesn't want to accept that what you're saying could be true. There's like a fear of accepting that has to be that way.
Yeah, but there will always be suffering when that person is trying to escape pain. That's the way it's going to be. When the person is trying to avoid pain, which we can consider as war, and try to block out the dark, then there will always be suffering. The dark and the light coincide. Like they have to. It's like a lot of spiritual practices make out that if you follow me or if you follow this, then there'll be the end of any wars, or there'll be the end of disagreement or whatever it is. And what I speak about is a total embracing of it all, a total embracing and seeing love in both sides, the absolute love of it all. It's great when I write now. All my characters I'm totally in love with, all of them. The baddie, the goodie, and there isn't the baddie or the goodie, even whatever. It's like when I write, it's so different from when I was younger, because when I was younger, before the first awakening, I had so many agendas that I wanted it to be like this or I wanted it to be like that. But I write, what we would consider as bad, but it's not really bad. But I'm so in love with the character. There's such love for every expression, and it's so obvious as to why each character has to do what it does. So obvious. Each character is in a way an effect of everything that ever happened, ever. It's not acting independently, and it couldn't be any other way.
And that's the same with the idea of ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Couldn't be any other
It
way.
really is so in a way, what happens in awakening is a falling totally in love with yourself, and to the point you disappear into yourself. It's like the Craig, the Lisa, that everybody just stops being rejected for what they are, and stops trying to be something else than what is, trying to be the nice person or the good person or the spiritual person or the calm person or the peaceful person or the naughty person or the rebellious person, whatever it is. And then when that happens, then there's a falling back into everything. So then there's an absolute acceptance of all the others.
Yeah, but it's like, yep, just yep. It's like you bask in the answer. It's just, yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining with me.
Pleasure. What a joy. I've loved talking with you.
Me too.
I love it.
I do too.